We all know Willie Nelson for his voice, his bandana, and that calm smile. He gave us songs that felt like home. But behind the music was a man carrying more pain than most people ever saw. He made the world sing, yet his own life was full of heartbreak, losing people he loved, watching friends pass, and dealing with health scares that nearly broke him. Even as he grew older, the hits kept coming, not just in music, but in life. What happened to Willie Nelson in the end is something fans never saw coming. Join us as we look back at the heartbreaking journey of Willie Nelson and the final chapter of a country legend. Willie Nelson's early life. Willie Nelson was born in a small town called Abbott, Texas, on April 29, 1933. But things were tough from the very beginning. His parents, Ira and Merle, separated shortly after he was born. His mom left first, then his dad remarried and left too. Willie and his older sister, Bobby, were left behind. They were raised by their grandparents. Even though their parents weren't around, the kids didn't grow up alone. Their grandparents gave them love and music. In fact, and they made sure Willie and Bobby grew up surrounded by songs. Willie once said in an interview, "Neither one of them had a way to take care of us. Really, they did us a favor." Willie's grandfather was a blacksmith. Willie would often help him out. But life took another sad turn when his grandfather passed away from pneumonia. Willie was just 6 years old. In his autobiography, he wrote, "Our separation from Mother and Daddy seemed worse than a death, because they were still out there in the world, but they weren't with me and Bobby like they were supposed to be." The pain from that loss stayed with him for years. His grandfather had given him his first guitar. Willie was 6 when he started learning chords. By age 7, he was already writing his own songs. He sang gospel in church and even joined a local band called Bohemian Polka at just 9 years old. Music was more than just a hobby. It became an escape. But even with music, life wasn't easy. Willie and his family picked cotton in the hot Texas sun to survive. He hated it. He once wrote in his book, "Roll me up and smoke me when I die. Here I was picking cotton in the heat and thinking, there's a better way to make a dollar and a living." And he was right. But the road to that better life was still very long. A teenager with a guitar and a dream. By the time Willie hit his teenage years, he had already faced more hardship than many adults. But he didn't give up. He started performing in small bars, dance halls, and honky-tonks. He was just 13 when he began earning money through music. While others were going home from school to rest, Willie was playing his guitar at night, just to help support his family. Willie had many musical influences growing up. He listened to legends like Hank Williams, Bob Wills, Django Reinhardt, and even Frank Sinatra. All those sounds shaped his unique voice and style. In high school, Willie wasn't just about music. He played football, basketball, and baseball. He also raised pigs through the Future Farmers of America. But it was always music that pulled him in the strongest. During high school, he joined a band called the Texans. It was led by his sister's husband, Bud Fletcher. They played every Sunday morning on a small radio station in Hillsboro, Texas. Willie was already getting used to performing for a crowd, even if that crowd was listening from their homes. But music didn't pay all the bills. So Willie worked side jobs too. He was a phone operator, a tree trimmer, and even worked in a pawn shop. Life was all about survival, and Willie did whatever it took. After graduating, he joined the U.S. Air Force. But that too didn't last long. He was discharged just 8 months later because of back problems. It was another roadblock. Still, he didn't stop moving forward. Trying, failing, and trying again. After his time in the military, Willie tried college. He enrolled at Baylor University and studied agriculture. He even joined a fraternity called Tau Kappa Epsilon. But he couldn't sit still. The music world was calling, and he dropped out in 1956 to chase that dream full-time. But dreams don't pay the rent. Willie took on more odd jobs to get by. He was a nightclub bouncer, a saddle maker, a partsman in an auto house, and again, a tree trimmer. He even worked in his friend Johnny Bush's band for a while. Eventually, he moved to Pleasanton, Texas. That's where he got his first shot at being a DJ. The owner of a radio station named K-Bop gave him the job, even though Willie had no radio experience. That little break helped him record his first songs in 1955. They were called "The Storm Has Just Begun" and "When I've Sung My Last Hillbilly Song." He used recycled tapes to record them and sent them to a label, but they got rejected. Still, he kept going. He worked at different radio stations, including ones in Denton and Fort Worth. He also played live music at nightclubs and taught Sunday school during the day. Then, he thought maybe a fresh start would help. He packed his things and tried to move to San Diego, but he couldn't find work there either. Speaking of which, what happened next shows just how determined Willie was. A freight train, a ditch, and a $10 lifeline. With nowhere to go in San Diego, Willie started hitchhiking to Portland, Oregon, where his mother lived. But no one picked him up. He ended up sleeping in a ditch. Imagine that. Young Willie Nelson, guitar in hand, alone, and without a ride or a home. That moment could have broken him. But it didn't. Eventually, he hopped on a freight train headed toward Eugene, Oregon. From there, a kind truck driver picked him up and took him to a bus station. He even gave Willie $10 for a ticket to reach Portland. That simple act of kindness gave Willie his next chance. Even then, success wasn't waiting at the doorstep. Willie kept working hard, moving from one job to another. At one point, he even sold encyclopedias door to door. But he didn't feel good about it. He once said in an interview, "Folks I was selling to were living in bare-bones apartments. I felt a little bad about selling a $600 set of books to people who couldn't afford a couch." Eventually, his hard work started to pay off. He sold his first song, Family Bible, for just $100. That moment changed everything. It gave him the belief that he could really make it. And that's when he packed up once again and moved to Nashville, ready to give country music everything he had. The road was hard. It was full of pain, rejection, and long nights. But it was also full of music, kindness, and small moments of hope. Willie Nelson's story didn't start in fame. It started in cotton fields, churches, radio booths, and even train tracks. And from all of that, a legend was born. A long road with many jobs. By 1956, Willie Nelson had already been through a lot. He was hired by a radio station in Vancouver, Washington, and also showed up on local television. Around that time, he recorded his first single, No Place for Me. Sadly, the record didn't do well, but he kept going. Willie worked as a radio announcer and performed in clubs at night. He even traveled to Colorado and Missouri looking for opportunities, but nothing really worked out. After trying to get on the show Ozark Jubilee and failing, he ended up washing dishes just to survive. Feeling stuck, Willie moved back to Texas. He stayed in Waco for a bit, then moved to Fort Worth. Eventually, he quit music for a year. During that break, he sold Bibles and vacuum cleaners door to door. Later, he even became a sales manager for Encyclopedia Americana. In 1958, his son Billy was born. Willie and his family then moved to Houston. On the way, he stopped by the Esquire Ballroom and tried to sell one of his songs, Mr. Record Man, for $10. The singer Larry Butler didn't buy the song but gave him a $50 loan and a 6-night singing job at the club. That small act helped Willie rent an apartment in Pasadena, Texas. There, he started working as a DJ again. He also recorded 2 more singles during this time. Willie's big break came when he sold the song Family Bible to Paul Buskirk for $50. He also sold Nightlife for $150. Even though he didn't keep the songs, Family Bible became a hit for singer Claude Gray in 1960. Willie believed music was still worth chasing. So, once again, he packed up and moved, this time to Nashville. But even in the home of country music, the journey was anything but easy. Writing for others and living on hope. When Willie got to Nashville in 1960, he couldn't find a music label to sign him. He spent time at a bar called Tootsie's Orchid Lounge near the Grand Ole Opry. It was a popular place for singers and songwriters. One day, he was jamming with some musicians when songwriter Hank Cochran noticed him. Cochran had just gotten a raise, but instead of keeping it, he asked his boss to give that money to Willie as payment to sign with Pamper Music. That decision changed Willie's life. One of the songs Willie performed at Tootsie's was Hello Walls. Singer Farron Young liked it and decided to record it. That helped get Willie's name out. Then, country star Ray Price recorded Nightlife. When Price needed a new bass player, he invited Willie to join his band. Willie hit the road with him and the Cherokee Cowboys. While traveling with the band, Willie's songs started becoming big hits, but not by him. Other singers recorded his music. Billy Walker sang Funny How Time Slips Away. Roy Orbison sang Pretty Paper. And most famously, Patsy Cline recorded Crazy. There's a story behind that too. Cline's husband, Charlie Dick, heard Crazy on the jukebox at Tootsie's. He liked it so much, he took the demo home and played it for Patsy. She decided right then to record it. The song became the most played jukebox song of all time. Even though others were getting famous with his songs, Willie still wanted to perform his own music. He signed with Liberty Records in 1961 and started recording in Nashville. His duet Willingly with Shirley Collie reached the top 10. So did his solo single Touch Me. In 1962, he released his first album, Fat and Then I Wrote. In 1963, Willie married Shirley Collie in Las Vegas. He later moved to California to work in the offices of Pamper Records. But that job didn't let him perform much. So he left and moved again, this time buying a ranch in Ridgetop, Tennessee. His next few years were full of ups and downs, but nothing could prepare him for what came next. RCA Years, a house fire, and almost quitting. In early 1964, Fred Foster from Monument Records signed Willie, but only one single came out, I Never Cared for You. Not long after, Willie moved to RCA Victor with the help of Chet Atkins. He signed a deal for $10,000 a year. His first RCA album was called Country Willie His Own Songs, recorded in April 1965. That same year, Willie joined the Grand Ole Opry. He also became friends with Waylon Jennings after watching one of his shows in Arizona. Willie then formed a band called the Record Men, which included Johnny Bush and Paul English. His music during this time didn't become major hits, but he was slowly building an audience. From 1966 to 1969, a few of his songs made it into the top 25. One in a Row, The Party's Over, and a cover of Bring Me Sunshine were some of his better performing tracks. But things weren't easy behind the scenes. Willie was using most of his earnings to fund tours, and those tours weren't bringing in enough money. On top of that, he divorced Shirley Collie in 1970. Then, disaster struck. In December 1970, Willie's ranch in Tennessee caught fire. It burned down completely. For Willie, that was a sign. He felt like life was pushing him to change direction. So he left Tennessee and moved to a ranch near Bandera, Texas. He also got married again, this time to Connie Koepke. His single I'm a Memory made it to the top 30 in early 1971. But RCA wasn't happy. They wanted him to renew his contract early. Willie refused. RCA then threatened not to release his music. After the failure of his album Yesterday's Wine, Willie felt defeated. He decided to retire from music, from giving up to leading Outlaw Country. In 1972, Willie Nelson was ready to walk away from it all. Even though he had written hit songs for others, his own career wasn't going anywhere. As People magazine once said, Willie was so fed up that he offered RCA $14,000 just to break his contract. He moved back to Texas, bought an old Greyhound bus, and started playing in bars and small places around Austin. But something special was happening in Austin. The city had a rising music scene, full of people who didn't care about the rules of Nashville. These were artists who just wanted to play their way. Willie fit right in. By 1973, he signed with Atlantic Records and released Shotgun Willie. Then came Phases and Stages. These albums had a new sound. It wasn't clean and polished like Nashville music. It was raw, real, and full of feeling. This new style was called Outlaw Country. In 1975, he moved to Columbia Records and recorded Red-Headed Stranger. The album was different, but people loved it. That same year, he worked on another album called Wanted, The Outlaws, with Waylon Jennings, Jesse Coulter, and Tompel Glazer. It became a major success. Willie was no longer just a songwriter. He was now a voice for a new kind of country music. In the 1980s, his success only grew. He made albums like Honeysuckle Rose and recorded hits like On the Road Again, Poncho and Lefty, and To All the Girls I've Loved Before. He also joined a group called the Highwaymen with Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, and Chris Christopherson. In 1985, Willie helped organize Farm Aid, a concert to support struggling American farmers. It was a huge event and still happens every year. Willie never missed a single one. Speaking of which, by the 1970s, Willie Nelson was more than just a musician. He was a star. With albums like Shotgun Willie, Stardust, and Red-Headed Stranger, he had made his name. And Hollywood took notice. From the stage to the screen. Directors like Sidney Pollack wanted him in their movies. Willie ended up acting in films like Electric Horseman with Robert Redford, Thief, and Stagecoach. Even though he didn't think he was much of an actor, he gave it a try. "I pretty much play myself, whoever I'm supposed to be," Willie said. And that doesn't require a lot of acting. He may not have won awards for acting, but he did get something just as special. A nomination for Best Original Song at the Oscars. It was for the film Honeysuckle Rose. The song was On the Road Again. Funny enough, he wrote it on the back of an airplane vomit bag. Willie liked being in movies, but music was still his first love. "I like making movies," he said, "but it's confining. And I don't like to go too long without playing concerts." But behind the fame and the films, Willie was still dealing with deep personal pain. And some of that pain nearly took him away for good. A dark moment in Nashville. Willie Nelson's early days in Nashville were not easy. In his book, Me and Paul, he shared how lost he felt back then. He lived in a broken-down trailer, parked next to a cemetery. He wasn't getting many music gigs. To survive, he went back to selling encyclopedias. He said he didn't usually feel depressed, but back then, he was deep in it. He drank a lot, trying to cope, but that only made things worse. At the bar, he kept seeing other musicians getting the success he was still waiting for. One night, while drinking, a song popped into his mind, Trouble in My Mind by Lightnin' Hopkins. There was a line that went, "I'm gonna lay my head on somebody's lonesome railroad line." That line stuck with him. There wasn't a railroad nearby, so Willie walked out into the middle of a usually busy street and laid down. But there was no traffic. Cars easily avoided him. And in that quiet moment, he had a change of heart. "Was I relieved? Was I disappointed? Can't say for sure," he wrote. "All I know is that I got up, went back to Tootsie's, and had another drink." Luckily, he made it through that night. But the heartbreak in his life didn't stop there. Love, secrets, and a broken marriage. Willie's love life had many ups and downs. In his book, Me and Sister Bobby, he talked about a moment that changed everything in his second marriage. At the time, he was still married to singer Shirley Collie, but he had secretly fathered a child with another woman, Connie Koepke. The truth came out in a very unexpected way. Shirley opened a letter one day and found a hospital bill. It wasn't just any bill. It showed the cost for the birth of a baby girl, Paula Carleen, born to Mrs. Connie Nelson. Willie tried to lie. He told Shirley it was nothing serious, just a hospital visit. But she didn't believe him. The bill had everything written clearly. There was no way out. "Had to get the words out of my mouth," he said. "Connie's my girlfriend, and Paula's our daughter." That was the end of his marriage to Shirley. He later married Connie in 1971. Despite all of it, Willie still speaks kindly about his ex-wives. "You don't discard them," he told the Telegraph. "There is no such thing as ex-wives, only additional wives." But even with his family growing, another heartbreak was coming, and it would be the most painful of all. The son he couldn't save. In 1990, Willie Nelson's world changed again. The IRS came after him for unpaid taxes. They took away almost everything, including his home in Texas and the recordings in his studio. His sister Bobby said, "The worst thing about it was that they took his music. They didn't take just material things, but the worst was yet to come." Just 1 month after Vanity Fair published a deep profile on Willie, one that talked about his sad songs, past losses, and moments of darkness, his oldest son, Willie Nelson, died by suicide on Christmas Day. He had been working on a gospel album before his death. Willie later told a friend, "I've never experienced anything so devastating in my life." But that wasn't the only loss he had to face. In 2020, Willie's longtime drummer and best friend Paul English passed away at the age of 87. Paul had been with Willie since the beginning. They met in 1956, and Willie described him as a gun-toting, fun-loving outlaw with plenty of charm and no fears. When Paul wanted to prove he could play drums, he used a cardboard box and paintbrushes. They were more than bandmates. They were family. Willie even named his daughter Paula after him. Paul had once said, "If I hadn't gone with Willie, I would be in the penitentiary or dead." After Paul's death, Willie's daughter Amy said, "He was like the co-patriarch of our family. Nobody can fill Paul's shoes, ever." Then, in 2022, Willie lost someone even closer, his sister, Bobby. Bobby wasn't just family. She was his music partner, his comfort, and his biggest supporter. Together, they wrote a book called Me and Sister, Bobby. In it, Willie wrote, "Without my sister, I'd never be where I am today. I've always needed her." Willie Nelson has been through more than most people can imagine. Over the years, he's had serious health problems, especially with his lungs. At one point, his lung even collapsed. He was also diagnosed with emphysema, a condition that makes it hard to breathe and often gets worse with time. The long battle with his lungs. In 2015, things got so bad that Willie had to get a stem cell operation to try and repair some of the damage. But how did his lungs get so bad in the first place? Well, it started early, really early. In his book, Roll Me Up and Smoke Me When I Die, Willie wrote, "I would take a dozen eggs from our chicken, walk to the grocery store, and trade the dozen eggs for a pack of Camel cigarettes." He started smoking cigarettes at the age of 6. But smoking didn't just harm him. It hurt his family, too. In that same book, he shared, "Cigarettes killed my mother, my father, my stepmother, and my stepfather. Half the people in my family were killed by cigarettes." Eventually, he quit cigarettes. He kept smoking weed for years after that, but when it started to affect his health, too, he gave that up as well. Now, he uses edibles instead. Even with all these issues, Willie never gave up. His strength and positive spirit have inspired many, including his own son, Lucas. In the documentary Willie Nelson and Family, Lucas said, "That's what makes him inspiring to me. His resilience in the face of adversity." And even as he faces aging, Willie's attitude about life and death is something else entirely. "I'm not worried about dying." Willie Nelson turned 91 in April 2024. Most people that age are retired or slowing down, but not Willie. He was still releasing music, performing at big events, and speaking to fans. And when he spoke about death, he surprised everyone with how calm he was. "I'm 91 plus, so, I'm not worried about it," he said in an interview with the Associated Press. "I don't feel bad. I don't hurt anywhere. I don't have any reason to worry about dying." Willie also added with a smile, "I take pretty good care of myself, and I feel like I'm in pretty good shape physically. Mentally, that's another story. Even with his health issues in the past, emphysema, a collapsed lung, Even the pandemic, Willie doesn't let fear control him. Instead, he keeps living the way he always has, with music, humor, and heart. He's the last living member of the Highwaymen, the legendary group he was in with Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, and Chris Christopherson. After Chris passed away in September 2024 at the age of 88, Willie gave a heartfelt tribute. He left a lot of fantastic songs around for the rest of us to sing for as long as we're here. Chris was a great friend of mine, and, you know, we just kind of had a lot of fun together and made a lot of music together. Videos, movies. I hated to lose him. That was a sad time. Even with that pain, Willie chose to keep going and to keep playing music. Still touring, still smiling. You might think that someone in their 90s would want to slow down, but that's not Willie Nelson. Even at 91, he was still taking the stage, guitar in hand, making people smile and sing along. In October 2024, he performed at a rally for Vice President Kamala Harris in his home state of Texas. Willie brought out his famous guitar, Trigger, and played crowd favorites like Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys and On the Road Again. The audience couldn't believe it. There he was, 91 years old and still full of energy. Fans saw him laughing, singing, and sharing the stage like he always had. And he wasn't alone. One of the special guests that night was Beyoncé. After the event, she posted a touching message about Willie on Instagram. That moment showed how deeply Willie has touched people across generations. From fellow music legends to new stars, everyone respects what he's done and how he carries himself, even when life gets hard. But while performing on stage brings joy to fans, behind the scenes, Willie has been thinking about the bigger picture, and he's using his music to share what's on his mind. Facing the end with grace. On his 92nd birthday in April 2025, Willie Nelson had something special to share. His 76th solo studio album, The Last Leaf on the Tree. This new album dives into deep themes, getting older, losing loved ones, and what it means to leave a legacy. It was produced by his son, Micah, which made it even more personal. In the same Associated Press interview, Willie said the album was about facing death with grace. The songs include covers of artists like Tom Waits and Beck, along with new originals co-written with Micah. Each track reflects Willie's thoughts on life, aging, and what we leave behind when we're gone. Even though the album talks about death, it doesn't sound sad. It sounds wise, peaceful, strong. That's what Willie has become to many. Someone who has seen pain, faced loss, and still found a way to keep going with a smile. And he's had a lot of loss to carry. Willie is now the only one left from the Highwaymen. He's seen close friends, bandmates, and family pass on, but instead of falling into sadness, he chooses to honor them by singing, performing, and sharing their stories. And perhaps that's why he's still here. Because every time he picks up Trigger and walks on stage, he brings part of them with him. Willie Nelson may have battled illness and sorrow, but he's also beaten the odds. And now, at 92, he's still on the road again, singing with strength, smiling with love, and proving that even after all life throws at you, you can still play the next song. What do you think keeps Willie Nelson going strong, even at 92? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time